Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to this new series on my channel where I try to motivate myself to read the physical books on my TBR by making it into a vlog series. So the idea here is that I have this entire shelf right here of physical books that I haven't read yet. The majority of them are historical romance, but I do have some other genres as well. So I have decided to do what every good YouTuber does and use a spinner wheel to decide what I'm going to do. I'm going to spin it, and then that is going to determine what I'm going to read until I am done with these books. It's also going to include my Scribd, Audible, and KU TBR just to make sure I'm utilizing those resources that I pay for. I'm going to pick 5 books, if I have 5 books, from that genre off of my shelf, and I'm gonna read them in the vlog. And then if I don't have 5 books from that genre, we'll spin again and get another genre. My options are vintage historical romance, adult fantasy, YA fantasy, fantasy series, historical romance series, contemporary romance, general fiction, Scribd, Audible, and KU. So let's go ahead and spin. So this time I got general fiction. Okay, so I have 3 general fiction books on my shelf. The goal is not to finish these. Well, the goal is to finish these, but if I do not want to finish them, I can obviously DNF. So the first book on my shelf is The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. I'm extremely excited to finally get to this author. I've heard nothing but fantastic things, and there is a there's a Winston Churchill nonfiction about impact on World War II that I want to try from this author. These are nonfiction stories that I've heard sound very much or read very much like fiction. I have it included in the general fiction section because I don't really have any other nonfictions. So this is Murder and Magic and the Madness of the Fair That Changed America. So this is about the 1983 World's Fair and the cunning serial killer who used the fair to lure his victims to their death. We then have We Are the Ants by Sean David Hutchinson. And this is about Henry Denton, and he gets abducted by aliens when he was 13, and they continue to steal him. He doesn't know why the world is going to end or why the aliens offered him the opportunity to avert the impending disaster by pressing a big red button. And the question is whether Henry thinks the world is worth saving. I think this is likely going to be one of those like life is worth living, humanity is inherently good type stories, which I don't super love, but we'll give it a shot. And then the last one is a book that I have attempted to read a couple of times. So this is one that I'm not going to like force myself to read if I don't want to, but that is Dig by A.S. King. This is like a YA speculative fiction story about and it all centers around this like potato farmer family, but it's got some weird characters. A.S. King explores how a toxic culture of polite, affluent white supremacy tears a family apart, and how one determined generation has a shot at digging its way out. So we'll see. So that means that I need to spin the spinner wheel for 2 more books. Okay, so I got vintage historical romance, which means I need to read 2 of them. So let's see what I feel like reading. Okay, so I just decided that I was going to go by color, not by, interest for these, because they all kind of have the same interest. The first one is Enslaved, and this was written in '96. So I'm not confident that this is going to have the best content in it, as historical romance is wont to do in the 90s. But this is about Diana Davenport, who gets lost and becomes the slave to Marcus Magnus. I'm not, again, confident that this is going to have the best, most romantic content. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of non-con in here, so. And then the other one is Midnight Desire, and this is about Kate McCall and Travis Hawk. And there's not much on the back aside from the fact that she's a delicious, daring vixen who'd be forever his. So these are the books that I will be reading, quite an assortment of choices. So we will see how this goes. Let's get into the vlog portion. Okay, I am 6 pages into We Are the Ants, and it's exactly what I was expecting it to be. So the opening prologue chapter, whatever, is literally a kid telling you you don't matter, which I don't love, because like I know that the rest of the story is going to be about why you do matter and why you should live life every day and all that bullshit. So let's see. If I have to read the word masturbate one more time in the next 50 pages, I'm gonna lose it. I'm on page 29, and masturbation has been brought up at least 3 times per page. And that's not an exaggeration. I wish it was, but it's not. I hate teenage boys. In an absolutely shocking turn of events to no one, I DNF'd We Were the Ants. So I think I discussed briefly my feelings about the like stories that are supposed to teach you a lesson about life and wanting to live and the importance of humanity. And this is one of those stories, and it's told from the point of a teenage boy in high school, and I just don't, like, none of that appeals to me. Like, I don't want to be in the head of a teenage boy. I don't want to read about him finding love and discovering why he shouldn't kill all of humanity. Like, I just don't. I decided to DNF it. I didn't even give it 50 pages. I gave it maybe 30 pages. So I will say that if you are into those like morality type stories, a gay teenage boy who falls in love with a new kid in school, and he's grappling with some other things in his life. His grandmother has Alzheimer's. His mother is trying to put his grandmother in a nursing home. His boyfriend is the popular guy in school who bullies him, and he's not out. He's treated like the secret. He meets this new boy in school who is like this emo painter who thinks books are for ugly people. Yeah. And then I ended up getting halfway through Dig, so I stopped at exactly 200 pages. I didn't have any issue reading this. So the first time that I read this, I distinctly remember everything feeling very disjointed, and I don't know like what my reading, like where my head was at when I read this. This is very easy to read. They're basically told in like little vignettes of these people's lives. You're switching points of view a lot, and it's supposed to be leading up to this Easter dinner put on by these rich people. And at the moment, I don't understand what the connection between all the characters is. I understand the connection between one character, like two characters with the old people, or the older couple. Most of this I feel like is pointless. Like, we'll make some really good points about white privilege, white tears, we'll talk about gun violence, sexual assault, drug use, all that kind of stuff, and we'll make some like really good comments about it, but we won't go in depth, and then the rest of it just is kind of pointless. But we're following 5 points of view. So we're following the shoveler, who is this new boy in town, and his mom and him move around a lot, and he starts up this friendship with the guy that lives next door to him, and the guy gives him a shovel, and he carries the shovel around everywhere, and he is painting the older couple's house and leading up to Easter. And then we have the freak, who is this young girl. They're all like high school age except one of them. She seems to be able to teleport. I don't know if it's like time travel or what. It hasn't been really explored all that well, but she just kind of like flickers to different places. We got hints in her last chapter that she knows the Hemmings, who's the couple, but we don't know how. And then there's Can I Help You? But she is a fast food employee. She is white and she is best friend slash falling in love with a black guy, and her family is extremely racist, and she's also a drug dealer. And then we have Loretta, the flea circus ringmaster, who is the granddaughter of the Hemmings, and her parents are abusive. And First Class Malcolm, who is another grandson of the Hemmings, whose father is dying, and he comes to live with the Hemmings. Again, like I said, we have some really great insightful moments, and then the rest of it just seems to be nothingness. I'm interested to see how the stories overlap and when we get that connection, but at the moment I don't really quite understand what the point is. I still have all of this left. Thank you, Bane. It's like 400 pages. Please ignore the sound of my cat growling in the background. So I still have all of this. I still have half of it left, so I'm sure we're going to figure out what exactly the point is, but at the moment I don't really know. I just know that it's easy to read and I'm getting through it. So that is the update. Hopefully I enjoy the other books left more than the 2 that I've DNF'd, and this one will probably get like a 3-star unless it absolutely blows my mind, and then we'll go into the historical romance, and then I'll make my way through Three Musketeers. So So I finished Dig, and as expected, I gave it 3 stars. Like, you can add whatever weird names, weird writing, weird like fantastical elements you want, but at the end of the day, a story about a family is a story about a family, and if you don't like those stories, you're not going. The story, it was just boring. It centers around this family and their racism and their family drama, and I don't find those stories interesting. Like, I don't find generational stories interesting. So I am like desperately craving a fantasy right now, and I just I don't know if I should just take a break from these and read a fantasy, or if I should just hope that the spinner wheel gives me fantasy after I'm done with these. But I'm like craving one, and I haven't wanted to read a fantasy in a long time. Like, I've read fantasies, but it's been a while since I've been craving to sink my teeth into one. Like, it's been like a year or so. So for the past year, I've just been in my romance, wanting to read romance, and now I just want to read like a deep, good, epic fantasy, and I don't really want to read romance, which is very weird for me. So I like listened to a romance audiobook earlier, and it just was like okay, and so I want a fantasy. So I'm going to get into the Three Musketeers. As you can see, I have, as you can't see, well, okay, so I've tabbed every 100 pages. I mean, I could just know that like it's 600 pages, so I have 600 pages to read, but having the visual representation just helps me for some reason. So I would like to get to 100 pages today. It's 6:30 and I'm on page 15. So I would like to get to 100 pages, and read like 100 pages a day or every other day or 50 pages a day. I know that the faster I get through these books, the faster I will possibly, fingers crossed, get to a fantasy, and that's not how I want to go into these books because I want to give them an honest shot, but it's just not what I'm feeling right now. So I'm going to update you at the 100-page mark and tell you how I'm feeling, and hopefully I'm enjoying this a lot more because I've heard this is like epic swashbuckling, revenge, all of that fun stuff, but I just have to actually get into the story, and right now it's not what I want. So I am 8 pages into Enslaved, and the heroine despises corsets, so you know she's a whore. So I haven't started editing this video back, but I anticipate that this is probably a very boring vlog, especially when I tell you that I have DNF'd Enslaved. I got 80 pages in. The first 80 pages of this, it is 400-ish pages, is setting her up for 2 romances that aren't even going to come to fruition because neither of them are the hero. So you can surmise that she probably won't go back to her time. So this is about Diana, who is in like 1800, and then she ends up going back to when the Romans had control over Britain. She ends up becoming the slave to this Roman general. But like I said, the first 70 pages are spent building her life in current day, like present London, which is not great. I don't like Diana. She's incredibly annoying. Spending all this time building up these other relationships that like inevitably weren't going to matter. All of it was just to give you the indication that the people that she meets in the past are the same people that she had met in the future. So like, let me give you an example. So Outlander, I can't compare it to the book because I haven't read it yet, but I can compare it to the TV show. Imagine that the first episode of the TV show had been the entirety of her living her life with her husband, just so that when you go back to the past, you recognize her husband as a person, like the actor. Does that make sense? Like the bloodline, does that make sense? Like it would be pointless. The intention behind the first portion of that to set you up for like the emotional turmoil that the heroine has to go to when she falls in love with someone in the past in Outlander. But in this, she didn't really like either of them. Like there's this half-baked, like snippy antagonistic relationship between this guy, an earl, and her, and then a kind of disgusting relationship between the earl's brother and her. So I don't know, it felt pointless, meaningless, and I just didn't really enjoy it. I knew what was going to come of this. I knew I wasn't going to enjoy relationships, so I'm DNFing it. So that means the last thing that I have to read for this video is the Three Musketeers, and I actually ended up picking up the audiobook for that, and I re-listened to the beginning of the story just because I wanted to get used to the narrator's voice. Quite a bit left. I think I have 16 hours because I listened to it on 2x speed. I have like 16 hours left of the audiobook, and I don't anticipate myself finishing it in a fast enough time, so I will update you on that book as the series goes on. I think that's going to be the end for this vlog. So altogether, I didn't really enjoy these books. Hopefully the next videos in this series are better, because this just didn't yield very good results. Granted, all of the books that I had picked were books that I had bought because they were popular. Like this one I got because it was in that eBay box, so I didn't really have a say in that. And then Three Musketeers is just something that I had, but the other ones I had gotten because I'd heard good things about them, not really knowing if it was something that I personally would enjoy, and I had gotten them when my reading tastes were different. Hopefully my next spin will grant me some fantasy, and the next video will just be an absolute delight, but this one, unfortunately, I fear was very boring. So let me know down in the comments your thoughts on anything that I read. If you think I should revisit any of these books, despite what I've said about them, please let me know. If you've read them and you enjoyed them, let me know that as well. If you have nothing to say, leave a pink flower emoji down in the comments. I will catch you guys in my next one, and thanks so much for watching.